8 situations showing Aquarius is being understood in a new way. Something is shifting in the way people see you, Aquarius. It is not sudden and it is not loud, but if you have been paying attention, and you always are, you have noticed it. The conversations are different. The reactions are different. The space people make for you in their lives has changed in ways that are subtle but unmistakable. For years, perhaps for most of your life, you have carried a quiet awareness that you were not fully seen, not fully grasped. People appreciated you, respected you, even loved you, but there was always a gap between who you actually were and who they believed you to be. That gap is closing now. And the 8 situations we are going to explore today are the evidence of that closing, the proof that something in the collective understanding of who you are is finally catching up to the truth you have always known about yourself. Situation 1. The first situation is one you may have noticed in your closest relationships. People who have known you for years, people who you assumed had already formed their permanent opinion of you, are suddenly asking different kinds of questions. Deeper questions. Questions that go beyond the surface of daily life and into the territory of what you actually think, what you truly feel, what keeps you up at night, and what makes you come alive in the morning. This is new, Aquarius. For a long time, the people around you were content to interact with the version of you that was most comfortable for them. The helpful one, the intellectual one, the steady one who always had things under control. But now they are reaching past those familiar surfaces and asking to meet the person underneath. And the remarkable thing is, you are letting them. Something in you has shifted that makes vulnerability feel less dangerous and more like an invitation. You are allowing people to see the complexity, the doubt, the tenderness, the fire that burns beneath your calm exterior. And what you are discovering is that they are not turning away from what they find. They are leaning closer. They are saying things like, "I never knew you felt that way," or "I wish you had told me this sooner." And in those moments, a kind of intimacy is being born that was never possible when you were hiding behind the version of yourself that everyone expected. This deeper seeing is not happening because other people suddenly became more perceptive. It is happening because you are finally giving them something real to perceive. And that willingness to be seen, truly seen, is changing the quality of every relationship it touches. Situation 2. The second situation involves the way your ideas are being received. For much of your life, you have had the experience of saying something that was met with confusion, resistance, or polite dismissal, only to watch the very same idea gain acceptance years later when someone else expressed it or when the world finally caught up to your thinking. That pattern was exhausting, Aquarius. Not because you needed credit, but because the constant experience of being ahead of your time can make you feel profoundly alone. But something is different now. The ideas you share are landing differently. People are not just hearing them. They are absorbing them, considering them, building on them. Conversations that used to dead end in misunderstanding are now opening into genuine exchanges of thought. And the reason for this shift is twofold. First, the world itself has changed. The issues you have been thinking about for decades, questions of collective well-being, systemic change, the balance between individual freedom and communal responsibility, these are no longer abstract or fringe concerns. They are the central challenges of this moment in history. And second, you have changed. You have learned how to bridge the gap between your vision and other people's understanding. Not by dumbing down your ideas, but by finding the emotional core of what you are trying to say and leading with that. You have discovered that people do not resist new ideas because they lack intelligence. They resist because they lack an emotional entry point. And you, with all your years of experience, have become masterful at creating those entry points. The result is that your voice carries a different weight now, a weight that comes not from volume or insistence, but from the quiet authority of someone who has been thinking deeply about these things for a very long time. Situation 3. The third situation is a change in how people respond to your need for space. In the past, your desire for solitude and independence was often misinterpreted as coldness, as rejection, as evidence that you did not care as much as others wanted you to. That misunderstanding caused real pain on both sides. For the people who felt shut out, and for you who could never quite explain that needing space was not the same as needing distance from the people you loved. But now, Aquarius, the people in your life are beginning to understand this distinction. They are learning that when you withdraw, it is not a commentary on them. It is a necessity for you. They are starting to see your solitude not as something threatening, but as something sacred, a part of your nature that deserves respect rather than resistance. This understanding did not happen overnight. It grew slowly, through years of patient explanation, through moments of honest conversation, through the simple evidence of your consistent return. Because you always came back, Aquarius. You always emerged from your solitude refreshed, more present, more loving, more fully engaged. And eventually, the pattern spoke louder than any words could. The people who truly know you now understand that your need for space is directly connected to your capacity for depth. The more room you have to breathe, the more fully you can show up when you are present. And that understanding, that acceptance of your fundamental nature, is one of the most beautiful gifts anyone has ever given you. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Situation 4. The fourth situation involves a shift in how your emotional depth is perceived. For years, there has been a persistent misconception that Aquarius is somehow emotionally detached, more comfortable with ideas than with feelings, more at home in the mind than in the heart. And while it is true that you process emotions differently than some other signs, the characterization of you as unemotional has always been painfully inaccurate. You feel everything, Aquarius. You feel it deeply, intensely, and with a complexity that can be overwhelming. You simply learned early in life that showing those feelings openly was not always safe, so you developed sophisticated ways of managing them internally. But now, the people around you are beginning to see past the management system to the depth that lies beneath. They are noticing the way your eyes change when something moves you, the way your voice drops when you are talking about something that truly matters, the way your hands find ways to communicate the tenderness that your words sometimes struggle to express. And they are responding to that depth with a kind of reverence that you never expected. They are saying things like, "I had no idea you cared so much," or "I can feel how important this is to you." And each time they say something like that, a small part of the wall you built around your heart comes down. Not because you are tearing it down deliberately, but because it is no longer needed. The people who matter have found their way inside, and they are treating what they find there with the gentleness it deserves. This recognition of your emotional depth is healing something that was wounded a long time ago. The part of you that believed it was not safe to feel openly. And that healing is allowing a richer, more emotionally available version of you to emerge, which in turn deepens every connection you have. Situation 5. The fifth situation is perhaps the most surprising of all. People are beginning to appreciate your unconventional nature not in spite of its challenges, but because of them. For most of your life, being different was something you had to navigate carefully. You learned when to show your uniqueness and when to tuck it away, when to speak your mind and when to hold your tongue, when to follow your own path and when to walk alongside the crowd for the sake of harmony. That constant negotiation between authenticity and acceptance was tiring, and it took a toll that you rarely let anyone see. But the tide is turning, Aquarius. The very qualities that once made you an outsider are now being recognized as exactly what the world needs. Your willingness to think differently, to question assumptions, to imagine possibilities that others cannot see. These are no longer eccentricities to be tolerated. They are strengths to be celebrated. And the people who are recognizing this are not just strangers or acquaintances. They are the people closest to you. The ones who watched you struggle with your difference for years, and are now seeing it bloom into something magnificent. This shift in perception is not just flattering. It is healing. It is retroactively validating every moment you spent wondering if there was something wrong with you. Every time you felt like an outsider. Every night you lay awake questioning whether the world would ever have room for someone who saw things the way you did. The answer, it turns out, is yes. The world not only has room for you, it needs you. And the people in your life are finally beginning to say so, not in grand declarations, but in the small, consistent ways that matter most. Situation 6. The sixth situation involves a new kind of respect for your boundaries. In the past, setting boundaries was often met with pushback, guilt-tripping, or the subtle implication that you were being selfish. And because Aquarius cares deeply about fairness and does not want to cause unnecessary pain, those reactions often led you to soften or abandon the boundaries you tried to set. But something has changed in the way people respond when you draw a line. There is less resistance and more acceptance, less guilt and more respect. The people in your life are learning that your boundaries are not walls designed to keep them out. They are structures that allow you to be your best self within the relationship. This shift did not happen because you became more forceful or demanding. It happened because you became more consistent. You stopped apologizing for your needs. You stopped explaining them as if they required justification. You simply stated them quietly and clearly and then followed through. And over time, that consistency taught the people around you that your boundaries were not negotiable, not because you were rigid, but because they were essential. And something beautiful happened as a result. The relationships that survived this boundary setting became stronger, healthier, more genuinely supportive. The people who could not respect your limits gradually fell away. And the ones who remained did so because they understood that respecting your boundaries was a way of honoring the connection you shared. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Situation 7. The 7th situation is a growing recognition of the wisdom you carry. Not just knowledge, wisdom. The kind that can only come from having lived fully, from having failed and recovered, from having loved and lost and loved again, from having stood at crossroads and made choices that you could not fully understand until years later. People are turning to you now not just for advice, but for perspective. They want to know not just what you think they should do, but how you see the world, what patterns you have noticed, what truths you have discovered that textbooks and experts could never teach. And you, Aquarius, are offering that wisdom with a generosity and humility that comes from knowing how hard won it was. You do not lecture or preach. You share your experience honestly, acknowledging the mistakes alongside the insights, the confusion alongside the clarity, and that honesty makes your wisdom feel accessible rather than intimidating, practical rather than abstract. People feel changed after talking to you, not because you told them what to do, but because you helped them see their situation from a perspective they had never considered. This recognition of your wisdom is particularly meaningful because it validates the path you have walked, even the parts that seemed pointless or painful at the time. Every experience contributed to the understanding you carry now. Every detour added another layer of insight. Nothing was wasted, Aquarius. And the people who are seeking your wisdom are proving that with every conversation, every question, every grateful look that tells you your words landed exactly where they needed to. Situation 8. The 8th and final situation is perhaps the most intimate of all. People are beginning to see your tenderness. Not the carefully measured kindness you offer to the world at large, but the raw, unfiltered tenderness that lives at the very center of your being. The tenderness that makes you cry when you think no one is watching. The tenderness that aches for every person who is suffering, even strangers whose names you will never know. The tenderness that loves so fiercely and so deeply that it sometimes frightens even you. For most of your life, you kept this tenderness hidden, not because you were ashamed of it, but because you understood instinctively that it was your most vulnerable territory, the place where you could be most easily hurt. But now, in this season of growing understanding, the people closest to you are catching glimpses of it. They are seeing it in the way you hold a grandchild, in the way you talk about the things that matter most to you, in the way your whole being softens when you feel safe enough to let your guard down. And they are responding to that tenderness with a tenderness of their own, creating a circle of gentleness that nourishes everyone it touches. This is what it means to be truly understood, Aquarius. Not perfectly, not completely, but deeply enough that the most essential parts of who you are recognized and cherished. And it is happening now in the quiet spaces between words, in the small moments of genuine connection, in the slow, beautiful process of letting yourself be known. Being understood is not a destination you arrive at once and forever. It is an ongoing process, a living conversation between who you are and how the world perceives you. But what is happening right now, in this phase of your life, is a significant narrowing of the gap between those two things. The world is catching up to you, Aquarius. The people around you are developing the eyes to see what was always there, the ears to hear what you have always been saying, the hearts to hold what you have always been feeling. And as this understanding deepens, something inside you is relaxing. A tension you have carried for so long that you forgot it was there. The tension of being unseen, of being misread, of being reduced to a fraction of your actual complexity. That tension is dissolving slowly and gently, and in its place, a new kind of peace is settling in. The peace of being known. The peace of being accepted not for who others wish you were, but for who you actually are. This is one of the greatest gifts life can offer, and you are receiving it now in full measure. With the open hands and open heart of someone who has waited a very long time and never stopped believing it was possible. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are.